What if I told you that the most powerful pirate in the history of the world wasn't Blackbeard, wasn't Captain Kidd, wasn't any of the men whose names dominate pirate legend, but a woman who started her career working in a floating brothel, commanded a fleet of over 1,800 ships and 80,000 pirates, defeated the Chinese Navy, the Portuguese Empire, and the British Empire, and then retired peacefully to run a gambling house. Her name was Ching Shih. And she remains, by any measure, the most successful pirate who ever lived. Almost nothing is recorded about Ching Shih's early life, not even her birth name has survived. She was born around 1775 in Guangdong province in southern China, and like countless poor women of her era in the Canton region, she ended up working aboard one of the many floating brothels that served the sailors, merchants, and fishermen of the Pearl River Delta. What we do know is that she was clearly extraordinarily sharp, observant, and politically skilled, because in 1801, everything about her life changed in a single encounter. The notorious pirate commander Zheng Yi, head of a powerful pirate confederation, either captured her brothel ship or came to negotiate with her directly, depending on which account you believe. What's certain is that Zheng Yi wanted to marry her, and she, remarkably, was in a position to negotiate the terms. She agreed to marry him, but only on the condition that she would have equal control over his pirate fleet and an equal share of all plunder. It was an audacious demand from a former sex worker directed at one of the most feared men on the South China Sea, and he agreed. From the very first moment of her pirate career, Ching Shih was not a pirate's wife. She was a co-commander. Under Ching Shih and Zheng Yi's joint leadership, their pirate confederation grew explosively, absorbing rival pirate fleets through alliance, negotiation, and force. By the time Zheng Yi died in 1807, reportedly in a storm, or possibly in Vietnam, the Confederation had become the single most powerful pirate organization in world history, and Ching Shih was left to decide what would happen to it. Rather than losing control, as many expected a widow to do, Ching Shih moved decisively to secure her position. She formed a strategic alliance, and eventually a relationship, with her late husband's adopted son and top lieutenant, Cheung Po Tsai, cementing her authority over the fleet's various factions. Under her direct command, the Confederation, known as the Red Flag Fleet, swelled to a scale that is almost impossible to comprehend. At its peak, historians estimate she commanded somewhere between 1,200 and 1,800 ships, crewed by an estimated 70,000 to 80,000 pirates, larger than many national navies of the era. Ching Shih organized her fleet with genuinely sophisticated administrative structure. She divided it into 6 squadrons, each identified by a different colored flag, each commanded by a subordinate answerable directly to her. She instituted a written code of conduct, a pirate legal system, with brutally enforced rules. Any pirate who raped a female captive was executed immediately, any pirate who stole from the common plunder fund before it was properly divided was executed, any pirate who deserted his post in battle had his ears cut off in front of the entire fleet as a warning to others. Villages along the coast paid her fleet protection money in exchange for safe passage, an entire regional economy operating under her authority rather than the Qing government's. When the Qing dynasty's navy attempted to destroy her fleet, she didn't just survive the confrontation, she annihilated it, destroying dozens of Chinese warships. When Portugal, then one of the dominant naval powers in Asia, sent its own fleet to break her power in 1809, she defeated the Portuguese navy as well. When Britain's East India Company got involved to help suppress her, hoping to protect its own shipping interests in the region, her forces held their own against them too. For a period of several years in the early 1800s, Ching Shih effectively controlled the waters of the South China Sea more thoroughly than any government. By 1810, the Qing government had exhausted its military options and, in a remarkable admission of failure, offered Ching Shih and her fleet a negotiated amnesty rather than continuing a war they could not win. This is, in itself, one of the most extraordinary facts of her story. The government of China negotiated a peace treaty with a pirate, rather than defeating her. Ching Shih personally traveled, unarmed and unescorted, according to most accounts, into the office of the Chinese Viceroy to negotiate the terms of surrender herself. The terms she secured were remarkable. The vast majority of her pirates were granted full pardons and allowed to keep their plunder. Some were even permitted to join the Chinese military. Cheung Po Tsai, her partner and second-in-command, was given an official military rank and post in the Imperial Navy. Ching Shih herself retired from piracy entirely, keeping her fortune, and moved to Guangzhou, where she opened a gambling house and brothel, the very same industry she had started in decades earlier, except this time as the owner rather than the worker. She lived out the rest of her life in remarkable comfort and respectability, dying peacefully at home in 1844, at approximately 69 years old, An almost unheard of ending for any pirate of any era, let alone the most powerful one in history. Ching Shih's story stands almost entirely outside the Western pirate mythology that dominates popular culture. No flags with skulls, no buried treasure maps, no rum-soaked taverns. Her story is one of pure organizational and military genius, a woman who built and ran, by some measures, the largest and most disciplined criminal organization in maritime history, and who negotiated her own retirement from a position of total strength rather than being defeated. Naval historians consider her among the most successful pirates, arguably the most successful pirate, male or female, to have ever lived, based purely on the scale of her fleet, the length of her reign, and the fact that she was never captured or killed, but retired entirely on her own terms. Modern scholarship on Ching Shih has grown substantially as historians outside China have rediscovered her story, and she has increasingly appeared in popular culture, including as inspiration for characters in film and literature exploring piracy in Asian waters, a stark contrast to how thoroughly her story was overlooked in Western pirate history for nearly 2 centuries. Ching Shih began her life with essentially no power at all, a woman in a floating brothel in a rigidly patriarchal society, with no family name worth recording. She ended it as the retired commander of the largest pirate fleet the world has ever known, wealthy, respected, and entirely unpunished. Between those 2 points, she outnegotiated a pirate warlord, outorganized a criminal empire of 80,000 people, outfought 3 world powers, and then outmaneuvered the very government that had spent years trying to destroy her, walking away from it all on her own terms. If you enjoyed this story, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below. Who do you want to see next?